Alright, so I've got another NPC upgrade build for you guys today, and today we're looking at G2 Nile's Deep Down AC. Now, before I go any further, I just want to mention really quickly that there was a mistake in the background footage with the FCS. I had the wrong FCS on the whole time, and I didn't realize it until I was recording the internal section, when I realized I had somehow in my head mixed up the stats on the P05 FCS and the P12 SML FCS, right? I just had their stats mixed up for some reason, and I didn't double check it when I put it on. It's my mistake. But moving on, what are the main issues with this build? Quite frankly, there aren't really any major issues, right? It's a pretty standard, like, heavy missile rat, right? And it's, by default, pretty good at that. I've made a couple tweaks here and there, largely personal preferences. Give it a better booster as well. I also did switch out the vertical missiles for the forward firing because I know some people really like the verticals, but I just find that they tend to be really inconsistent. Like, if your opponent's just moving at all, a lot of times they'll just, the whole volley will miss. And I just don't like them for that reason. So I switched them out for the forward firings. I find that they're a lot more consistent overall. Again, that's just my opinion, though. I also switched out the Harris linear rifle for the Curtis linear rifle. I think it might just be kind of like a mental block on my end where I'm just like almost afraid to spam like the Harris at all because I'm worried I won't be able to charge in time to get a direct hit punish. So a lot of times I'll just sit there and hold it charged and just do nothing with it until I get a stagger, right? And with the Curtis, on the other hand, you can very safely spam that, right? So I switched those out. I'm not sure if it's really better, but it definitely feels a lot better to play with in my opinion. And yeah, there's not really too much to say about the build. Again, it's a pretty generic missile rat build with a linear rifle to punish with, right? And you know, pretty solid at what it does. Again, tweaks here and there in the frame to sort of like optimize stat distribution a bit. But yeah, not really too much more to say about it. Let's go ahead and get into the details. Now, getting into the weapons, of course, first we've got the handheld missile launcher, which I haven't changed from his original build. And you know, this is just the best handheld missile launcher in my opinion. There's not really much else to say about this. The split missile launcher just isn't as consistent. It's got a slightly longer reload time. And the apparative has a much longer reload time, but doesn't do that much more damage and impact than the P19 MLT does, right? So it's just the best missile launcher in my opinion. You know, it's light, low energy load, reloads very fast, very spammable, right? So yeah, pretty good weapon all around. The next we've got the Curtis linear rifle, which I have switched from his original Harris linear rifle. And this change mostly just come down to the Curtis felt way better to play with, and I think I also ended up with better DPS overall. Because I kind of felt the issue with the Harris was because of the, you know, the much lower fire rate and the longer recharge time that I rarely ever actually fired this thing unless it was a charge shot for a direct hit damage punish, right? And it just kind of felt pretty bad in that regard. And I switched to Curtis, tried it out, and you know, with the Curtis you can just spam away in the middle of neutral, and when you get a stagger, you'll still have time to charge up your shot, and you'll get the directed damage punish, right? So the Curtis just felt way better in that regard. Now, obviously, you have to be a little careful with that. If you spam just a little too much right as you get the shot, as they get staggered, right, you won't be able to get it fully charged in time. So, you know, you have to keep that in mind. But you have to be so much less careful with your shots. And you do it with the Harris, you can just spam away. And like I said, I'm quite certain I did quite a bit better DPS overall with the Curtis than I did the Harris. Now, moving on, we've got the double active homing missile launcher. And you know, talked about this weapon, I think in the previous video, really good. The active homing missiles are quite nasty. They can be very hard to avoid at times. They do a good chunk of damage. And yeah, there was just no particular reason to change this weapon. I really like the active homing missiles a lot. So there we go. Now we've got the forward firing 10-cell missile launcher, which I did switch from his original 12-cell vertical missile launcher. And the reasoning here basically comes down to, I find that these standard vertical missile launchers are just very inconsistent, right? Your opponent really doesn't need to do much more than just move, you know, just do a little bit of strafing, and vertical missiles will miss a lot in my experience. And it just felt a lot worse to play with in my opinion. So after some testing and play around, I ended up deciding to switch to the 10-cell, which is relatively similar, you know, in its weight and energy load. And, you know, you're not losing that much damage. But I did find that just overall, this felt much better to play with, right? And honestly, I even considered just giving him another double active missile homing launcher and just kind of doubling down on that, but I decided to stick with standard missiles. And yeah, that's basically it. This just felt way better to play with, right? And yeah, that's all there is to say about the weapons. Let's move on into the frame. Now, we've got a couple changes to the frame, and most of the changes to the frame are kind of focused on just getting a better balance of stats, especially in the energy supply efficiency department, right? Now, first for the head, I haven't switched his Melander head out. This is a pretty solid head all around. For its weight and energy load, it's got pretty good defenses and attitude stability, right? Not really too much to complain about it. I mean, sure, its scan stats aren't the best, I guess, if you care about that. But other than that, it's got pretty good stats all around. Attitude stability is good. System recovery is good, and the defenses are pretty good, right? Now, moving on, we've got the Tianqing core, which I did switch from his Melander core, right? And the main thing here is because this is kind of already kind of a chunky and hefty and on the slow side build, I wanted a lot of attitude stability to make the build feel a lot comfier to play and add a lot more wiggle room, right? So in conjunction with switching the arms to shave off some weight, I switched this core out. You know, a lot of extra defenses, a lot of extra attitude stability, and also a lot of extra energy supply efficiency, right? Which is kind of the thing that tipped the scales over to the Qian core, in my opinion, was the extra supply efficiency that we gain on the build. It feels very, very nice. It might not seem like that much from 3400 to 4200, but I definitely felt the difference. And on a generator like the Santai, which I have put on the build, you definitely feel that extra supply efficiency, right? It feels really, really nice. Now, moving on, we've got the Tianqing arms, switched from the original Tian Lao arms. Now, the Tian Lao arms have, you know, just super, super good defenses, but obviously they're incredibly heavy. And as you can see with the Tian Lao arms, I'd be sitting at a 0.98 quick boost reload time on this build, which is, you know, not ideal considering, you know, with the base of 0.63 on these particular boosters, right? So I, you know, kind of shaved this down to Tianqing, which still has very good defenses, but weighs a lot less, right? You know, it's not a massive defensive loss, but it's definitely a loss for sure, but it's quite nice regardless, right? Definitely saved a lot of weight with this. And moving on, we've got the Tianqing legs, and you know, this is a pretty good pair of legs. This is what he has on originally, you know, for its weight and energy load. I know I say that a lot, but it's kind of important to contextualize these things, right? It's got good defenses and good attitude stability. There's really not much to complain about these legs. They're definitely, you know, pretty good. Definitely some of the better legs in my opinion. Really, really solid all around, especially for like a mid to heavyweight build like this, because it does have a very good load limit for its, you know, base weight, right? And yeah, that's all there is to say about the frame. Go ahead and move on into the internals. Now, for the internals, my primary consideration here was that this is basically a missile rat build, right? Well, of course, I'm going to adjust the internals to reflect that. Now, originally, he has on the P04 boosters, and you know, these are the boosters that are just kind of good in all the stats, and not, you know, they're not great at anything, but they're also not bad at anything, right? And obviously, when we're trying to optimize a build, that's not ideal. So, for a missile rat build like this, we're kind of looking for upward thrust and assault boost thrust as kind of our primary concerns, right? And in terms of getting tons of upward thrust, our main options are, of course, going to be the Gridwalker and the NGI-001. And it's pretty easy to decide between these two, right? Because the Gridwalker just simply isn't going to handle a heavy build like this very well. You can see we have a quick reload time of 2.2 seconds. And, you know, even though this is kind of a missile rat build and you could rely on just simply keeping your distance, I'm not a fan of being overly reliant on that. So I would like to have decent quick reload stats no matter what. So, of course, the NGI-001 is the better choice here, in my opinion. Just have way better quick boost stats. And obviously, kind of the main trade-off here is the NGI-001 is very energy hungry, but we have the Santai to make up for that, right? And in exchange, you know, we get, again, way better quick boost stats, slightly better thrust, and better assault boost thrust as well, right? So, yeah, pretty easy choice between the two. And, yeah, there you go. Now, for the FCS, to quickly explain my mistake between these two FCS, for some reason I had gotten into my head that this was the FCS with the good missile lock correction, so I just simply like, yeah, that's the one. I didn't bother, you know, pulling up the tab and double checking the missile lock stats on it, and I just clicked it, and that's why I had that on earlier. But of course, he has on the P10 SLT, and I've switched it out for the P12 ML. This is mainly just for the extra medium range assist to help support that linear rifle a bit better, the Curtis. This is probably why I just kind of clicked this without thinking about it. But obviously, being primarily missiles, we do want that good missile lock correction, and it's not a massive loss over the P10 SLT, right? So yeah, pretty good trade-off in my opinion. And finally, kept his original generator, the Santai. Talked about this generator quite a few times in the past. Really, really big energy capacity, good recharge. Sorry about that. Good recharge stats, good recharge delay. And obviously the main downside of the Santai is just that it's really heavy, right? But really nothing to complain about. Very, very solid generator all around. Especially good for the NGI 001 to sort of support that very hungry energy booster, right? And yeah, finally for the expansion, of course, he has on pulse armor originally. You can use whatever you want. For PvE, you know, I kind of stick to assault armor. For PvP, personally, I stick to terminal armor because I don't want to think about expansions while I'm playing PvP. And yeah, there you go. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. And before we get to the gameplay footage, as always, a quick thank you to our members. Any tier of the membership is greatly appreciated. The support is, you know, is very valuable to me. And of course, you do get some benefits. Of course, you get your name here. You can be here with the other guys. And you know, you can see videos a day early if you get the Purple Cat tier or higher. And as always, there's some other stuff. That's enough talking about that. Let's go ahead and get into the gameplay footage.
Landing at Site B, extracting Comrade Messin. Raven, keep watch. Enemy sighted. Site C, extracting Comrade Father Dolmayan. He's the last one. We're counting on you, Raven. Has been extracted.
Thank goodness you're safe, Father. Coral abide with Rubicon.
You don't know what you're saying, girl. There'll be nothing left but dying embers. Mission accomplished. Leaving the combat area. 621. New enemy confirmed. That's a Red Gun's AC! Escorting a prison break all alone. You're daring, I'll give you that. I've fried bigger fish than you. That's gun 2, Nile. Red Gun's deputy commander, and the brains to Michigan's muscle. It's too dangerous to force our way through. Raven, secure the escape route.
Right-hand ammunition at 50%. 30%.
They won't have anything left to throw at us now. Thanks for the support, Raven.
2 repair kits remaining.
Confirmed. The chopper has exited the combat zone.